Atlassian, and thanks everyone for joining. We'll just let you know now that we're going to have a HR talk first. So if you haven't set up the stuff required for the Forge part, you will have a little bit of time to do that if you haven't already. So get started on that if you haven't. And just before we start today's event, I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're gathered today. So my name's Robbie. I'm an events officer at the Monash Association of Coding, or most of us would know that as MAC for short. I'll briefly introduce our club and who we are. So we're a coding club that focuses on imparting invaluable technical skills and industry relevant experience to students. Our ultimate goal is to foster the programming culture at Monash and provide a collaborative setting for students to do projects and learn from one another. And what sets us apart is that everything we do produces a result and adds value to your careers. So don't forget to follow us on social media, which we'll share in the chat so that you can keep up to date with all of our future events. I'll now hand over to Zuli from Atlassian, who's going to start today's session.
So much. Well, I get this presentation ready. So basically, so I'm part of the campus team. I've been working at Atlassian for 2 years. So I'm in charge of the internship and recruitment. Recruiting those roles. So basically the internship at Atlassian is a try before you buy. So the internship runs for 12 weeks, and best of it is that if you do a great job, that's when we're going to progress your application or fast track your application for a grad role. What are we looking for? You might be wondering. We're looking for those key developers. We're looking as well for security, SRE, design, analytics, content design, and prototyping now this year, unfortunately. So most of our roles this year are going to be concentrating on intern roles. So just feel free to ask us as many questions. But basically we are now in the peak period of recruitment. So this is a chance where if you're interested in any of our roles, just feel free to hand out your application. So among those things, we are looking for the next season to be face-to-face. So that means that we are looking forward to having all those interns in the office. That will be in November. So the program starts in November 2022 until February, the 11th of February. So this is for those who are visual like myself. So this is the duration of the internship, that is 12 months. They are hired as casual employees. And the program, as I said before, is a trial before you buy. It's the opportunity to work on real projects with some of the best people in the tech industry. And I'm pretty sure that the feedback of our interns have been that they're giving meaningful work. They will be definitely using their programming skills. Among others, we have brown bag sessions, we have co-working time, we have founders AMA. So this year we had some Ask Me Anything with Scott, which went well. Social events, a lot of social events like Zip It, like Paint and Zip. As well, we have Ship It. Ship It is our internal hackathon that runs for 24 hours and is the opportunity of different Atlassians working on whatever they want to work. Technical projects, non-technical projects, so the sky is the limit. So again, roles that we're looking after: analytics, design, and software developers. That's for interns. For grads, we don't have as many roles this year because they have been filled. And this is an example of a process that you can go through. There'll be application, then you get a screen from a recruiter, then there's a hiring manager review, a final interview, there's an assessment day. This process may vary. This is for analytics, but the process may vary when it comes to other roles, but definitely will entitle some technical interviews. So I will stop sharing and let me know if you've got any questions. Just seeing the channel that knowing to use Forge is a huge advantage for Ship It. Yeah, DT, couldn't agree more. Yeah. Let me know if you've got any questions now or connect with me on LinkedIn. Again, can't wait to see your applications. Let us know that you attended this event if you decide to apply so we can somehow fast track your application. And if not, let's stay in touch. Thank you.
Thanks, Zuli. Hey everyone, just give me 1 second while I share screen. Awesome. Hi, my name is Aditi and I'm a product management intern at Atlassian. I'm currently working on the ecosystem platform team with Aryan and Zach, who are 2 engineers that joined me today. If I look a bit familiar, that's because I'm also a sponsorship officer at Mac, and you probably saw me at our previous event, the careers panel. To get started, I wanted to have a chat to you about ecosystem and introduce you to Forge. I'll then hand it over to Zach and Aryan. We'll be having a chat about a little bit more of the technical things about Forge and then running you through a workshop as well. I'm sure you've heard this before, but the goal at Atlassian is to unleash the potential of every team. But there are a few issues with this. The requirements of a bank are very different to the requirements of a software engineering company, for example, which means our products need a great deal of extensibility. They need to be able to meet a ton of different use cases, and honestly, we as a company can't address all of them. And this is where our incredible ecosystem comes into play. Our goal as the ecosystem team is to give third-party developers the ability to create apps to share on the marketplace and in-house solutions so that they can address these issues and create the solutions themselves, resulting in an infinite number of use cases that can be solved. I'm going to go through a few examples of what these developers have built in the past. These are also some apps that have actually been acquired by Atlassian. First, we have automation for Jira, which was previously known as Code Barrel. This is a powerful no-code automation solution for creating endless use cases in Jira. Next, we have Advanced Roadmaps. This app, it enables our users to look at agile roadmaps and helps build and plan to see the big picture and see into the future. Finally, Chart.io. This tool creates advanced visualizations to make data accessible to everyone, and it forms part of Atlassian's new analytics and visualization engine for our products. As you can see, there are some incredible apps being built, and we have quite a few platforms that allow developers to do this. But today we're going to be focusing on our newest platform, Forge. So, why Forge? Well, there's a few developer benefits. The first one is power and ease. Due to a seamless toolchain, serverless functions, and an incredible UI, it's now easier than ever to build and maintain cloud apps. These apps are also hosted on the Atlassian infrastructure, which means a really great deal of security. And it allows developers to easily create apps that are enterprise ready. Finally, our goal is to be consistent across Atlassian. Currently, Forge is available on Jira and Confluence, but we're working towards more products which will be coming soon. Now, I know what we're all here for, and that is to actually build on Forge. A really exciting thing is that usually when we run this workshop, we can't allow students to build because it used to be in beta. Well, Forge is now generally available, which means you can all join us and you can follow along with Zach and Aryan as they guide you through building an app on Forge. Before I hand it over to them, just a quick little shout out that you can actually share your apps via direct distribution. So you don't need to wait for marketplace approval, be a business, and go through the entire process. Our goal with Forge is to make it easy for even individual developers like yourselves to create and share apps. And that's where the ability to do so via a link comes in. And that's direct distribution. So if you build something cool and you want to show your friends, make sure you check this out. I will now hand it over to Zach and Aryan because it's time to build your Forge apps.
Thank you, Aditi, for that intro. Working on Forge. So quite excited to go through this tutorial with you guys. And along with me, Zach is also here, who's actually going to do the intro to Forge. So I'll pass it to Zach.
Cheers. So I've recently joined Atlassian, but I'm a Monash graduate from about like 10 years ago. So lovely to see you all again. I'll share my screen. We'll go through this. We have some slides, so nowhere near as good as the DDs, but to just guide us through. So before we build an app, we thought it'd be good to dive a little deeper into like the basics of building a Forge app. So like Aditi said, they're written in JavaScript or any language that you can transpile to JavaScript. So TypeScript is popular with Forge apps as well, so you get some type checking. And we provide the APIs that you can call from your app. And this is through something called the Forge runtime. So you'll see that later on when we start building an app together. And that's for things like calling the product APIs, calling APIs on the internet, working with environment variables and configuration, those sort of things. And then for where your Forge app can slot into the products, we rely on extension points that we expose throughout the products. So products in this case is Jira and Confluence. If you haven't used them, it's Confluence is like a content management system, very powerful, and then Jira is a ticketing system, and they work really well together to manage your work and share knowledge and everything. And some of those extension points that you can slot into in your app would be things like a macro, so rich content in a Confluence page, or an issue panel on a Jira ticket. There's hundreds of these extension points. And then to expand on UI kit, like Aditi said, we created our own thing. And the power of this is we've kind of used inspiration from React. So it looks like React, but it's not React. But you'll see that there's hooks like use effect and use state. If you've used React before, you'll find them also in UIKit. They work the same. And the benefit of UIKit over some of the other toolkits we have is that you don't have to worry about styling. So you can just build your app and do what you want, and it'll look like it's part of the product. And they won't have like green buttons or all that sort of crazy stuff. We also provide 40 plus components in UIKit to build your app. So buttons, images, rich text, code, that sort of stuff. And we also have another framework, which we won't be looking at today, but it's worth knowing about, called Custom UI. So it's an alternative to UIKit and uses traditional and standard sort of HTML and CSS, like literally. So you could say port an existing app into Forge and then run it. You know, Flappy Bird, if you've written something like that, you can port that into a Forge app and have your game running in Confluence or Jira. To expand on what Aditi said around running the apps, so the current model of Forge is that Atlassian runs the apps for you. So there's no servers for you to maintain, which is really big for, especially a session like this. If you build an app and it's useful, it'll just keep working. You don't have to, renew the domain. And if you forget to renew it, there's security issues and that sort of stuff. It'll just run forever. And then deployment and installation are worth kind of dissecting. So we'll go over this when we build an app, but the act of deploying your app, so deploying your app to Atlassian, is you'll bundle everything up and upload it to Atlassian. You'll need to redeploy every time you change your app. And then installation is taking that app and installing it onto a site. So a site being like zsims.atlassian.net or whatever site you set up. And you only have to install it once, and then it'll be there forever, and the updates will be automatic. It's worth being across the distinction because it can be a little confusing at first. Like, do I have to reinstall it if I change my app? The answer is no. And that's pretty much like a super high level summary of like the apps themselves. And I'll hand it back to Arian.
Yes. Okay. Oh yeah. I'll just share my screen and we'll do this. All right. Oh, am I sharing? Can you guys see the right screen? I mean, the correct screen, I should say.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right. Okay, cool. So hopefully you have the participants React thing, because I'm going to ask a few questions now. Although before I do that, I'll show you what we'll be doing today, and then we'll actually start doing it. So Confluence, fingers crossed you've heard of Confluence. If you haven't, that will actually hurt me very much, even though I don't, yeah. So if you haven't heard of Confluence, it's like Notion, but you know, maybe a bit more, has a couple more features. So what we're going to be doing today is that we're going to make an app for Confluence. There's multiple different types of apps you can make. One of them is an app that lives in your documents. Actually, another way to explain Confluence is like, it's pretty much like a Google Docs, but a few more features. So we'll be making this essentially. So you can have your own sort of Giphy thing show up, and then there's a button you can push it, and then it will generate a new random GIF for you. If we have time, we can expand this, but the ideas will be the same. The idea here is really just to show you how easy it is to actually deploy these apps. And if we're quick enough, we can actually finish it in 5 minutes. But of course, I'll go a little bit slower so that everyone can follow. So this is what we will be doing. And if once again, the bonus is that we also search, but we'll see how we go with time. Before I even go through the concepts, I want to make sure you all have, oops, the wrong file. I want to make sure you can all open up. Hopefully we can all open up a terminal and make sure you have Forge installed. And hopefully that actually gives me the version. So can you give me a reaction or a thumbs up or any sort of positive reaction if you already have Forge CLI on your computer? Yep. If you don't, you can just literally search for Forge CLI download. Maybe Atlassian. It's under Get Started. So this is the page. And it's if you have npm installed, which I hope you do, you can just install it via that command. And I'll send this link through as well. If there are any issues, feel free to unmute yourself, or you can also use the chat to send us your questions, and we'll try to answer those as we go. So hopefully everyone has this installed. I'll just show you, so you can just copy that and go to my terminal. I can again put that in. It takes a couple of seconds. Shouldn't take too long. And if you get that, you can just sudo that and it should let you in. So I think I actually managed to update it. Mine was actually an older version of Forge. Also, is this screen too small for everyone? I can make it a bit bigger potentially. Silence is happiness.
I can see the text very clearly.
Okay, cool. Yep, this error is fine. I'll just skip that, that's fine. As long as you can get Forge open like that, and you can do -- version, and it gives you a version, that's good. That doesn't look right, does it? That's an interesting problem. Let's try that again. There seems to be a problem actually. Not sure if it's specific to me, if anyone else is having this issue. Yep, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. I'll just try a new session and hopefully the problem will be resolved. If not, we'll have to see if we're having an incident at the moment. No, it seems like it's gonna keep doing it. But it seems like it worked this time for me. It's at 1.2 at the moment. Hopefully everyone's following still. So you should get 1.1 or 1.2 when you run Forge version, and that should be okay. If there are any issues, just put it in the chat and we'll answer it. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll also link the tutorial that we're following, but we might skip a couple of steps here. So we might do it a little bit differently to the tutorial. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, let me just make this a tiny bit smaller so we can have the terminal on the side as well. Okay, so before I even go through creating the app, the idea is that you want to have an Atlassian account. And if you do, you can go on admin.atlassian and you should be able to see the Atlassian account that you've created. And it usually comes with Confluence, Jira, and some other products. So if you head over to admin.atlassian.com, you should be able to see your domain. And you want to go to the Confluence app here, or you can just click on your org, and that should, this org, and that hopefully should take you to the Confluence page. Usually it's the name of your organization, .atlassian.net, and you should be here, a page on Confluence. So the requirements is that you have to make an Atlassian account and get access to Confluence and so on. If there are any issues, let me know now so we can fix it. This is quite a critical thing, because otherwise you can't really test your app. So if you already are on Confluence, on your own instance on Confluence, give me a thumbs up or a reaction so I know. I got 2 thumbs ups. 2 out of 36. 3 out of 36. Okay, there's a couple more now. Cool. I'm getting a few more. Cool. All right, at least there's at least 6 of you are following the tutorial. That's good. I'll take that. Cool. So once you're here, you can create a page, very much like a Google Docs page or a Notion page. You can give it a title, you can write some content, or you can even use the templates. Today, we're going to make an app called Macro, which basically means it will live within this page. So for example, you can call it title whatever you want. So I'm just going to call it my first Forge app. And then here we are going to run our app. But of course, we don't have the app yet. So I'm just going to leave it as is for now, and we'll come back to it in a second. So we'll just leave that Confluence page and we can go to the slides. So once you have your macro, it will literally be within the content of your Confluence page. So in this case, it's a button that prints a text, hello world. That's basically it. And today we're going to make a macro that displays a GIF to you. And there is a button, you can click on the button, and then that would generate a new random GIF for you. Once again, we're going to go through this rough guide, which I've already sent the link to you. And make sure you have the Forge CLI. Hopefully we all have it by now, and that we have a Confluence page to test it. That's basically all you need. And once you have these requirements, we're good to go. Cool. All right. So first thing we want to do is that we want to make sure that we're logged in. So if this is the first time you're doing it, you can just use Forge login. Your email address that you use to create your Atlassian account. And this bit can be a little bit tricky. If you haven't done this before, this is not your password. This is actually a token that is generated for you. So you want to copy that address, go on your browser, open that up, and make sure you log in with the same account. And you would have to create an API token here. Okay, so I'm just going to create a new one. I'm going to call mine Forge test, Forge Monash, create. And don't close it, because if you close it, you can't access it ever again. So make sure you copy that and go back to your terminal and paste it. And that's fine. That's fine. That error is okay. Cool. Okay. That's basically it. So Forge login, make sure you go through the process. And once you have logged in, give me a thumbs up so we can continue with this next step. Yes, admin.atlassian.com. Yeah. There's probably better ways to get to it, but that's the method I use actually. If Zach or Aditi know a better way to get to your Confluence pages, let me know. All right, yeah. So that was the first thing I did. But if you are doing the Forge login, it gives you the address to go through. Yeah. And if you missed anything I said, the tutorial actually has these, maybe not. The tutorial doesn't have the login section, but the getting started Forge page does have these. So that does go through the Forge login and tells you what you should do. Cool. Can I get a thumbs up if you've done the Forge login successfully? I see a few thumbs ups. Yep, that's good. All right, cool. All right, cool. All right, let's do the next step. So now we're logged in, we have everything we need. We can actually create the application. And if you've done React development before, you are probably familiar with create React app. We have a similar sort of CLI command called forge create, which does almost the same thing. It will create a boilerplate app for you with a template that you want. So I'm just gonna go to my documents, and Forge is a folder that I've created for this tutorial. And I'm just gonna go Forge create, and that's it. So Forge create, that's all you need. And then press enter. And this will ask you for a name for your app. I'm just gonna say Forge Monash. You can name your app anything you want. Doesn't really have to be unique. It's just the name that you refer to it when you want to name your app. Or this will do a folder name for your app as well. Okay, so we're going to call that. And it's going to fetch a list of templates for you. The template that we are going to be using today is a Confluence macro. And that is under UI kit. But you can actually click on show all and they will show you everything, and you can also find it there. So you can use your arrow keys up and down, and you can also enter, which will go into that. So show all, and this will show you everything. And this is the one we want. So Confluence macro TypeScript. Or you can also do it without TypeScript if you wish. It's up to you. If you like TypeScript, TypeScript. If you don't like TypeScript, do it as just JavaScript, plain JavaScript. They both work fine. Okay, I'll be using TypeScript, but you don't really have to if you don't want to. Okay, so I'm just going to create that, and now it's creating your app, registering it. It's basically doing an npm install for you now as well, and that's basically it. So now you should be able to see a Forge Monash folder or directory created, or in your case, whatever you name the app. And you just want to open that up in your favorite code editor. Mine is Visual Studio Code. So I'm just going to open that up. And I might put my code editor up here somewhere. And we'll put the tutorial down here. Actually, I'll probably do a side by side. We probably don't need this terminal anymore because I'll be using the terminal within my code editor. Okay. So let's just go back to the tutorial. So we just did Forge create. And let's just go ahead and deploy our app just so that you can see that it works. But before I do that, there's a couple of things we want to change. And the first thing I'd like you for you to change is the manifest.yaml file. This is basically like the details, the attributes, the whatever you want to call it of your apps that specifically is unique to your app. So basically the key for your app. So I'm just going to change Forge, Monash hello world to be maybe something like, I don't know, Giphy Monash. You can name it whatever you want. I'm also going to change the title of it to be Giphy or Monash. The title can have spaces, but the key should not have spaces. So that's something you want to keep in mind. And the title will be the title you will see on Confluence. So whenever people search for your app, the title is what they see. So you want to name your title something that I guess makes sense, something that people search for. A description is, I don't know, inserts, random, oopsie. Oh, maybe I should just do the proper spelling. There you go. Cool. And that's basically it. If you're curious, this is the ID of your app, which is unique just for your app that was just created a minute ago. And these are the rest of it. So the key function, these are specific to your app. And this just says that, hey, when your app runs, it runs the main, which is the index.run, which is this index file right there. That's basically it. And all your code actually lives within the index.tsx file. If you went down the non-TypeScript path, it would have been index.js. And at the moment, all it does, if you've made a React app before, this looks super familiar. If you haven't made a React app before, you can think of this as your UI components, things that people see. And this just says that it should be rendered as a macro app, because we have different types of apps. We have, for example, side view for Jira. We have different views for Confluence, but this is a macro for Confluence. So we need a way to differentiate where this app actually lives within Atlassian apps. So that's how you define where it should go, and it's just a macro. That's pretty much it. So fragment, you can think of it as a division of div. It's a little bit different, but you can think of it as a wrapper around your components. A text is just a text. You can put your text there. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Just to demonstrate the app, let's just go through the whole process of deploying the app. And fingers crossed, we can deploy it without any issues today. So let's go, and you can hopefully see how easy it actually is to see your app from your code to your live website. Okay. Going back to the tutorial, now we're on the third step. So we're doing a Forge deploy. So let's go Forge deploy, make sure you are within that directory. I'll make it a little bit bigger as well. So I'm just going to do Forge deploy. Okay. So what this step does is that it will bundle your app from your local system, and it will basically send it to Atlassian to be deployed. And once it's done, your app is on the Atlassian cloud, essentially. And the next step that we'll see is Forge install. And what Forge install does is that it says, all right, this app that I just created, I want to put it on my Confluence page. So that's the difference between the two commands. Forge deploys your app to Atlassian cloud. We have your app, we have your logic. but then you have to install it somewhere. You have to put it somewhere that you can use, and that's what Forge install does for you. So you can say, all right, now that I have deployed my app works fine. I want to see it on my Atlassian. I want to see it on my instance on Confluence. So I'm just going to say Forge install. And it's going to say, okay, which product you are dealing with at the moment. I'm just going to say Confluence. And here you need that URL that we saw at the very beginning. The Atlassian account that you've created, what is your address for that? So in my case, it's called Ariane the Atlassian. And make sure you do not put the HTTP tags or anything like that. Simply just a subdomain name and the domain name, okay? So it should look something like this. Whatever your domain name for your Confluence page is, copy that, .atlassian.net, without any HTTP or colons or slashes, anything like that. Simply just the domain and subdomain name. Okay, I'm just going to hit enter. And it will just ask you for scopes. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes, I'm sure. And that's it, that's done. The app is installed. Are there any issues? If there are any issues, you need time to catch up, just put it on the chat. I don't see any messages popping up. No? Okay, well, if not, we can actually see our app now. Cool. So once you're on the Confluence page, you can do / and search for your app name. In our case, what do we call ours? We call ours as Giphy for Monash. You might have called it something else. Oops. Might have to refresh it. Seems like it's preloaded it or something. Let me refresh this page and hopefully we can see it. There we go. So now you can see I've made other apps for this in preparation for this. So Giphy for Monash shows up. You might have called it something else. In your case, it's probably just one. So you click on that and then it loads the instance of your app. And surprise, surprise, you get your hello world displayed. Okay, cool. And that's basically how you do the whole process of deploying. Hey, but I want to have more exclamation marks. So what I'm going to do is just going to add 5 of them here. And I'm just going to say text Atlassian Hearts Monash. And you see that problem? That might be a problem because this is a, so that's where we can escape that. Or maybe I can actually find heart emoji and actually insert that. All right. And let's see, I want to see this in action again. So what I'll do, this time you don't have to install it because your instance of Confluence already has this app. So you just have to deploy it once again. So all you got to do, Forge deploy, and then refresh this page, and you should see the new instance of your app. Usually Forge deploy is a little bit faster than this. Not sure what's happening. It's my internet or whatever today. Okay, deployed. Okay, perfect. You don't actually have to refresh the app. You can just open a new instance of it, and you can see that it appears. That's actually how simple it is to make a Forge app and make changes, see it on your live website and so on. Later, you will see an even faster way of seeing your changes by using tunneling and stuff. But for now, this is the most simple way of doing it, the basic way to do it. Just Forge deploy. All right, cool. Now let's actually do our app. Can I get a thumbs up if you have managed to deploy your app and see your app on Confluence? Okay, let's see a few thumbs ups. Yep, that's good. All right, I see a fair few thumbs ups. That's a good sign. If you're facing any problems, just use the chat. I'm more than happy to help and fix the problem. Cool. In fact, it's good for us to know if you think the whole process is not great, or if you think the documentation needs some work, we're always open to feedback for it. Cool. So now let's actually do the tutorial. So we've done all this whole process. Now we've done this as well, actually. And we haven't done debugging. What we want to do is just do this Giphy app. So we are on step number 3. And instead of just copying this across, I'll actually try and type it so that we don't cheat, really. I want you to see all the steps that goes through this. I want to just have a new component called image card, which takes in 2 props, title and source. Again, props, things I say, these are just React's, like, best terms that we use, which essentially, if you haven't come across React, you can think of this as a function and this as the parameters of a function. And then you can instantiate that function anywhere you want. And you can think of this function as a component, a HTML component that renders your app. Cool, let's do this. Oops, do that. And I'll return a fragment. Oopsie. Yep. So React, the fragment, you can think of it as the container of the things you want to include. And I'm going to have a text. In my text, I'm going to display the title. And under image, I would like to have the source to be passed in as a source of that image. And it's always good to have an alt text so that people who can read, if there's a problem with the source, you can at least know what the issue is. Now, you might get an error that says, hey, well, image doesn't exist. What is this image thing you're using? Make sure it's imported from our Forge UI. So you can import everything here. Okay, awesome. And instead of doing this hello world, I want to do a text that says, hey, random GIF. And I want to now instantiate my image card and pass in a URL, oops, as well as a title. If you don't like typing, you can literally just copy this. Yeah. You can just copy this from the tutorial. And I need to define what that URL actually is. I'm just going to copy that from the tutorial. And also we'll also define the title. And the title for this image is Awesome Avalanche GIF. All right. That's it. If I haven't made any typos, that should basically be it. And we can once again Forge deploy. And fingers crossed, this should work. Oops. What do I do? String literals. I didn't close my string. Okay. Let's try it again. Once it passes the Forge lint, you know you've passed the stage where you've made mistakes and it should be fine. All right, now some more of the big moments. Let's see if we can see our app. Also, a couple of shortcuts for you if you're new to Confluence. If you want to go from this edit view to a view that's like for like viewing, I guess, the view mode, I should say, preview mode, I should say. You can do Command-Shift-E, and that takes you there. Or if you're on Windows, it's probably Control-Shift-E. So you can see it there now. And it's already deployed. So now it's actually showing the Avalanche GIF that we've defined on our app. and you can press E once again and go back to edit view. Control-Shift-E is a good way to get a preview of what's going on. And it has already cached these. That's probably why it's not showing the correct app. That's pretty much it for this first half of this tutorial. We have a GIF being shown. We've used an image. We've used different components, and we've used Forge Deploy to deploy our app. And I guess the biggest takeaway here is all you got to do, make changes to your code, Forge Deploy, and I guess refresh this page and you'll see it. Once again, there's better ways to do it, but that's the basic way of deploying apps. And I think that's mainly it for the first part of this. And next up, I'll pass it to Zach to talk a little bit about debugging your app.
Thanks, Aaron. All right. So I'm going to talk about debugging because it's all great when it works well. But when it blows up, it's good to be able to debug what's happened. So there's two ways of doing this in Forge. One is through tunneling. So in that case, we actually run your app on your computer locally inside a Docker container and then tunnel the requests back through Confluence to your local computer, where you can attach a Chrome debugger, which I'll demonstrate in a second. And the other way of debugging apps is through logs. So JavaScript logging statements like console.log will end up in Forge logs, which are also shown in a sec. So I was following along, skipped ahead a little bit, just because something I prepared earlier. But for tunneling, if you put a debugger statement, so like a JavaScript debugger statement anywhere, and if you run Forge tunnel debug, --debug is to attach the debugger. We'll just wait for this to download the internet. I have my beautiful app there. You'll see that it spits out a Chrome DevTools debug URL. So if I pop that into Chrome, you'll end up with the Chrome DevTools to use them for, super handy for setting breakpoints and all that. And then if I interact with my app, it'll interact with the version I have running locally. So if you refresh the page, just because I had the cloud version running just before, you'll see that it's hit the debugger where we had the debugger statement. So then I could step through using the Chrome debug tools to work out what exactly is my app's doing or not doing or blowing up. This is super handy for like, yeah, what was in the response from Giphy when we get to downloading through the API, and you go through and look at the properties on the response. So maybe you want to have a look at, what's in the response JSON as well. Or step through and whatever. If you're used to interactive debugging, super handy. And then the other way, so if we go back into here and I stop tunneling, you don't have to tunnel with the debugger attached. You can just do Forge tunnel. And then the changes you make to your app locally, you don't have to redeploy them every time, which is a much faster dev loop, like Arian mentioned. The other way would be through Forge logs. So you'll see I had a console log and then the URL that we're going to display. If I call Forge logs, this will go and fetch the logs that Atlassian stored when it's been running your app and then spit them out back to you. So I can see that every time I run this, or someone's run this, might have been other users on Confluence, that it's loaded these GIFs. So I can go and see like all the GIFs that have gone through my app, which is handy. I might want to log other things like, debugging things or compliance or that sort of stuff. And yeah, so that's worth playing with, especially like whatever you're comfortable with. If you like debugging through console statements, then go for it. Or attaching a debugger is also handy. It can be a bit fiddly because you have to put the debugger statement in to get the right breakpoint, but yeah, and I'll hand over to Arian for the second half.
All right, cool, thanks, Zach. So let's just stop using Forge deploy and introduce Forge tunneling because I love Forge tunnel. Okay, let's do that. Forge tunnel. Although you might need to have Docker installed to do Forge tunnel, unfortunately. But if you do, you should try it instead of Forge deploy, because you'll see why. It's a lot better. I think the first time I came across it, actually blew my mind how much better it is than Forge deploy. So if the demo gods are happy with us today, we're not going to be okay. Things are happening. Okay, building code, that's good. That's a good sign. No issues. Perfect, that's it, done. So now, if you go on your Confluence page, and I'm just going to edit this. I'm just going to delete all these instances that I had, and I'll try make sure it works. You see an invocation shows up. So now instead of Atlassian running our app, we are running our app, which means every time I make a change, it compiles on your system and it's live on Atlassian. So let's say I'll change this text to be more exclamation marks, right? I save this file, it will build your code or bundle your code, and it's ready. And if I go to preview mode, you can see it's live. So if you're developing, Forge Tunnel is the way to go, just because it's a lot faster to see your changes as you go. But of course, you have to still do Forge deploy for your code to be bundled up and sent to Atlassian at some point. Okay, so that's Forge tunneling. If you have Docker image, I recommend having Forge tunnel on your run more Forge tunnel instead of Forge deploy from now on. Okay, so let's make a few more changes. This app is not very interesting at the moment, and we have no buttons, we have no interactivity, we basically have 0 interesting things happening. Let's spice it up a bit. Well, in order to actually do it though, we need this API token thing. So I haven't actually done it, so we can do it together now. So you just search for Giphy API, Giphy developers. Surely they have like a maybe get started. I've already signed up, but you can also sign up while we're setting this. And you know what? Okay, I already have a token ready for me. But in your case, you'd have to sign up and create an app and go through the whole process. Let me just see the messages if people have questions. Yep, cool, perfect. Can you give me a thumbs up if you have that Giphy API token thing? API key, I should say. Let me open up the participants. 1 person has it. That's not a 2. Okay. Okay, maybe I'll link the page. Maybe that will speed up the process. There we go. So maybe I'll just go through the whole process with you. So create an app. You want the API. I don't know if I mentioned this. You want the API, not the SDK. So you select the API. Next step. I'm just going to call mine Forge Monash app. No description. That's fine. Oops, you need description. I'll use the same thing for description. There we go. So now you got your app. That's simple as that. Yep. I mean API. What's it called? API key. Yeah. So we'll copy the API key, and well, not now, but we'll need it in the future. And now we can continue with the rest of this app. And let's do step number 4. Oh, I guess we've done 4. Let's do 5. We want to have a bit more of a interactivity. So let's just add this API fetch thing. So in this case, I might just copy the parts that we don't have. All right, let's define this as a constant. This is the API base for the Giphy API. And it looks like we are creating a new component. Okay. Just out of my own laziness, I might just copy that across. Yeah. I would probably just copy that across instead of typing it out. Okay, the Giphy JSON interface is fine. I will just remove all these TypeScript stuff from our code, so we don't have to deal with running those things. And now telling me that API is not defined, because API is something that we have to actually import. And what we have to import is import API from Forge API. And guess what? We don't have Forge API. So what we should do actually is open a new terminal, go here and just do npm install Forge API safe. And that will download that for us. And that's as simple as that. So now this should be defined, I hope. And if we rebundle the app, so if you missed it, Forge API is not automatically downloaded, so you have to download it separately. And hopefully now it's fine. We might have to rerun our tunnel again. Let's see if it's happy now. Okay, seems like that was good. But notice that we need that Giphy API key, and at the moment we don't have it. So we need a way to pass that in as our environment variable in, and the way you can do it through Forge Tunnel is through this. So just copy that across and put it in your terminal. You just want to have your API key at the very end here. So this is what we had previously, paste it there, and this is what you should see. If I'm going too fast, let me know, or let me know in the chat. So I'm basically following this tutorial if you've missed any step. I've already made the changes to my index.tsx, and now I'm running the Forge tunnel with my API key added at the beginning of it. So this will essentially pass that in as an environment variable, so that when your code is running, it knows that variable exists. Yeah, exactly. And we'll actually go through that variable set later on. Okay. So the Docker image up to date, running Forge lint, and it should be happy now. Now, the problem is though that we're not actually using this get random, GIF actually. So we should actually run that here. So constant URL, title, like that. And we should probably add an await here. And that should be okay. Make sure I've done the right thing. Right. So they've added as an action. Yeah, we can do that. That's probably a better way to do it. So I'm just going to cheat and just grab that from there. So they're using this method of grabbing it instead of just using an API call. So hopefully that works. I think that looks about right to me. So what we've done, it's a little bit convoluted now. I'm not a huge fan of convoluted codes like this, but What this is doing is it's just making an API call. So it's making a request to this Giphy API with a random tag with this API key, and that's it. And what it's doing is that it's deconstructing the response, the JSON response that you're getting, which includes a bunch of things. But the only thing we care about is the URL of the image and the title of the image. So this fancy bit of code here is doing that exactly. It's basically just extracting the two things that we need. And once it extracted them, we actually return the title and the URL back. And here on our app, we're using this use action function to update that title and URL. So basically what it's doing is that every time the app loads, it will make that request. Every time the request is made, it will essentially update these two things. Okay, let me make sure I haven't missed anything. I think that's pretty much it. So if I haven't missed anything, this should work. So we'll see. Edit this page, and run it again. So there you go. That's your random GIF or GIF. Edit again. Go back to preview mode. You'll see another one. So there you go. That's an indication that our app is working. Any questions? Any issues? Any complaints? Okay. You should just, you have to install that one, yeah. So I may have gone through it a bit too fast. So what you should do is run that command. You have to npm install that package. Yeah, no worries. Any other issues, questions? If you, I guess, miss this code here, this whole thing here, I don't know if I can send it all on Zoom. Does it work, or is it too big? I think it's just too big for Zoom to handle on the message, yeah. I think there is a, oh yeah. So if you've missed, okay, the entire code is at the very end. So we might just run that next and we'll see. Okay. So if you, I guess, missed some things here or there are some problems, what we are going to be doing now is we'll also add a button that every time we click a button, it will refresh that animated GIF. And this time I'm not going to code it because I'm a bit lazy. So I'm just going to copy what is at the very end, the index.tsx at the very end of this tutorial file. And so I'm just going to copy this, copy that, replace everything I have. And I'll just walk you through what it's doing. So we're importing API, we're importing all those components we need. This is our Giphy API base. If you're not familiar with TypeScript, you can just get rid of this actually, and get rid of all these promises and interfaces and so on. This is just a type check thing. You don't have to have it. And we can also get rid of these interfaces if you're not familiar with TypeScript. And the rest is just plain up JavaScript now. So the rest is pretty much the same. This get random GIF function remained the same. We're still making the same API request and we deconstructing it to get the things we need, such as the title and the URL. And now though, we have a button and our button text is just like shuffle. And we have an event listener called onClick, which will run this set random GIF, which will in turn run this action once again. And that will give us this title URL. So simple as that. If you want to, if this is the first time we come across actions, that might seem a bit weird, but this is the way they work. They're kind of similar to use state, but they're used for different purposes. Let me see if we can find a good guide on this. Oh, this might be a rabbit hole that we shouldn't follow, actually. But if you are curious about use action, you can look it up. It's a totally different thing. It's a React thing that you can look up. Any questions? No questions so far. Perfect. I think that's pretty much everything. So I'm just gonna listen for requests. It's already compiled everything. So we can go to our Confluence page, if I can find it. And preview mode. So Command Shift E. Oh, it's already preview mode. So you want to go to edit mode, which is E, and then Command Shift E to go back to preview. And there we go. Our app is rendered. We're getting a random GIF, and we can shuffle it. And then we'll now it's a new GIF. You can shuffle it again. It didn't. Oh, it gave us a new one. It just takes a while to load, but there you go. And I think that is pretty much it, actually, for this particular app. Yeah. Are there any questions? And of course, once you're happy with this, this might be worthwhile mentioning that, remember how we had that Giphy API key? Of course, you don't want to put that in your code. You always want to keep your tokens as a variable, as an environment variable, because that's a security problem otherwise. So you might be wondering, how do we forge deploy and send a variable? Or you can save your variables like so. So you can do forge variable set, and you just set that as an environment variable for this particular app. I'm just going to go across, copy my API key, paste it there, and it's added. So no, I can simply forge deploy. Notice that we only did forge install once. And every time you make changes, it's forge deploy. Yeah. There is one instance that you need to forge install once again, and that is when you add new permission scopes or when you change the name of your app. Essentially, every time you change your manifest, you have to install it again, because that's considered a new version or new instance of your app. But if you make changes to your code, the logic of the code, you can forge deploy and it will be the same thing. And that's it, done. And of course, Atlassian will take care of all the scaling, everything for you. You just have to write your code and you send it to the cloud. And if your app breaks, or if you get customers coming to you saying, hey, the app is too slow, you can blame Atlassian, and that's fine. That's basically our team as well, and that's totally fine. And we blame Amazon, AWS for it, but they can't blame anyone else. So that's the end of the pipeline. Good. That's true. Okay, cool. I think that's pretty much the end of this tutorial. I think I'll pass it on to Zach about sharing your app and other details.
Cheers. I want to talk about, so we've written an app today. It's an extremely exciting app, but it hopefully gives you an overview of like how you could build a UI kit app, how you could deploy it and install it. I want to talk about how you could share it with other people. So if you wrote an app to solve the unique problem, not that GIFs aren't a unique problem. If you went to developer.atlassian.com, because you now have an Atlassian account, you would see in the top right, my apps. And if you go into Develop Console, you'll be able to find your app. So this is my Mac Giphy app. And if you went down to distribution, And if you decide to share your app, fill out all the legal requirements about where your privacy policy is, because you definitely have one of them for your app and your terms of service. And then you saved it, you get an installation link that you could share with other people who had a Confluence site, and then they would be able to use that link to install your Giphy app in their site. So that's one way of distributing out Forge offers, a bit like sideloading, I guess, in Android or iPhone. And then the more official route is Forge just launched support for marketplace apps. So we have this thing called marketplace.atlassian.com, where it's a marketplace for vendors to sell or distribute their apps to customers. So inside Confluence, Jira, and Bitbucket, you'll see like an embedded marketplace, and that'll display apps that are written by vendors and also Atlassian. So if you look at the Confluence, Script Runner, all these other really useful apps that our customers use to extend Confluence. And if you wrote an app for Forge or Connect, or one of the other frameworks, you would be able to publish it in our marketplace. And some of this can be very fruitful, I'll say, for vendors, like especially if you're solving a problem that a lot of customers have. It's worth keeping in mind as well, is you can use this to make a little bit of pocket money and help other people with their problems as well. Other than that, yeah, if there's any questions, like we'll stay around for the next 10 minutes, I think. Feel free to scream, or even about like, hey, what do you do in your day job, Arian? Which team are you on? What's it like to work at Atlassian? How good is Monash out of 10? I will point out though that the University of New South Wales love to tout Atlassian because that's where the founders came from. So that's right, Monash is still up there.
Monash is it's the second uni with the highest grads. So I don't know if it's a volume thing or we're just too good. I don't know what it is, but UNSW is pretty big. We were pretty big, so that's probably a volume thing. But also, like, it's good to flex. What is my favorite thing about Atlassian? Man, I love this. I love our Slack channel. It's so good. You can find all sorts of emojis and things. If you think you've seen all the emojis in the world, you're wrong. There's way too many. Like sometimes I don't even write what I want to say. I just find a emoji that's actually perfect for it. Yeah, and the rest is generic stuff. People are nice. Yes, they are nice. And it is an exciting time to be part of Atlassian now as well, just because we're expanding a lot. And we're trying to make our products a lot better than they were before. So it is good to join as a grad or as an intern as well, because you see, I guess you do see your code being deployed. Your PRs actually go to master, and that actually gets to developer at Atlassian.com or Jira or whatever. So it is an interesting feeling. Yeah, I think I talked too much about that question. Zach?
For me, it's like the diversity for a global company. Like in my team, we have people in the US, Poland, Bengaluru, like everything. It's like crazy from a time point of view because I have to wake up pretty early some days or stay up late. But it's really good from a like follow the sun, learning about other cultures as well, and people have different ways of working. The slang, the Australian slang, doesn't translate that well for Americans, but other than that, that's all right. And for the next question, I did software engineering at Monash. Finished like 10 years ago, 11 years ago, where it was. It was really good. Thoroughly recommend if you're not studying that.
Yeah. And I did mechatronics engineering, but I had a lot of interest in software, so joined Atlassian. The other question: how do we navigate our Slack? We don't. It's impossible to find anything. Yeah. So it's there are interesting ways of finding things. I think the first few months, and I'm on my third month at Atlassian, so I'm pretty new. But I think I've found my way around how to find things. I think that's a very important skill, especially because we have so many Slack channels and everything. Yeah. Are we working from home? No, I'm not at the office today, but I could go to the office. I think our Sydney office is the only office that is piloting still, so limited capacity, but we can go back if we wish to. If you're in Sydney, you can go back. And the other thing that's, I think, new with Atlassian is like the work anywhere sort of initiative, that if you're from Melbourne, you can stay in Melbourne. You don't have to move to Sydney, and you can stay there forever if you wish to.
I'm in Melbourne, here forever. Not going to Sydney, no way.
I took the bait, I moved to Sydney. Was that a good decision? I don't know. Any other questions? Oh. Have you actually lived in Sydney, Zach?
No, I'm not that silly.
Never? Oh!
No, it's the same. Like, we're so close, and it's like a 45-minute plane ride. And Atlassian gets all the teams together, I think, quarterly now. At least that's the plan after people's kind of got COVID under control.
I think Sydney is all right. It's not too bad. It's not as, I still like Melbourne a bit more, to be honest. But it just feels like there's a lot more hustle and people are more busy, more aggressive in Sydney. That's just the feeling I get. But overall, it's very, very similar. It's just marginally different.
There's some real questions, Aaron.
What does a day at work look like for you? Well, as a grad developer, I think it's highly dependent on your team. In my team, we do full stack development. So on some weeks, I'm actually on the back end side. Some weeks I'm on the front end side. And some weeks I am on disturbed, which means you are doing anything not related to your sprints, essentially. So if someone comes in and bothers you and say, hey, fix this security problem, it's the disturbed issue is that they have to fix. So this week I'm on disturbed. So I've had a very interesting week, had to deal with incidents and a lot of those high pressure things. But usually it's just you write your code, you pair program with people if you're new. And we have a big sort of pair programming sort of culture, that if you're new, if you're not super comfortable doing what you are allocated to do, people pair with you, meaning you just go on a Zoom call and you do the same task together. And yeah, that's basically it. Zach, maybe you have more interesting.
No, that was pretty interesting. But I'm in security, so my role is very different to like a developer. So Atlassian's pretty big. Depending on the security team you join, on this concept of embedding. So it's like working with engineering teams to deliver like security capabilities. So it's things like threat modeling, security reviews, security testing, building systems and stuff that support creating more secure apps and platforms and everything. There's a lot to do. Yeah.
I think that pretty much covers it. I don't think there's much else that we do every day for development. I think PMs, if you're interested in a PM role, PM's job is quite different. But I think there's other sessions that can cover that. PM being product manager, by the way. It might be interesting to you, but every product team at Atlassian usually has a product manager and an engineering manager and a designer and a bunch of developers. An engineering manager takes care of all the technical details, and PM is a bit of everything, and more so choosing what is the most important thing to do in the direction of the team. Social bonding. No, we don't need social activities if that's what we're talking about. Usually we have highly dependent on your team. Because I'm a grad, I sort of try to go out and do other social activities with the other grads. But if your team is not too old, you can also hang out with them. I don't know how else to answer this question. But there's usually a team watches every 2 or 3 weeks with your whole team.
I have a question. Who's going to go and build a Forge app after this? Yeah, I mean, motivated by it, like it's really good for your resume. Be looked favorably by companies, but also that you can also make a business out of it. Yeah, build a CRM. There you go. That sounds easy and fun. But yeah, if there's no more questions.
Yes, I was going to say, if there's no more questions, Robbie, did you want to wrap up?
Yeah, sure. So we can wrap up here today. So first of all, just on behalf of Mac, thanks to Zuli, Aditi, Aaron, and Zach for running today's sessions. Really awesome, really nice demo. And also just for all the participants, we've sent out a feedback form in the chat. We would really appreciate if you fill that out, because of course that means that we can make our events better for you guys in the future. And then of course, just follow us on social media as well. Keep up to date with what's happening at Mac, and hopefully see you at some more events in the future.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, team.
Yes. Thank you, Arian. Thank you, Zach.
Thanks for having us.
See you. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, go Monash, right?
Yeah.
Hey. Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Oh, nice.